quick look at a game I've not really delved much into. That is Shikhondo on the PlayStation 4. From what I can tell in my limited research, this doesn't even have a Wikipedia page for it, so that's saying something, right? This is pretty obscure, I guess, or at least just unknown. What we have here is the limited edition East Asia soft release, released on PlayAsia, limited to a small amount of copies. We're about to find out, because I'm pretty sure there's like a card in here telling me how many copies there were. You get it in your very typical collector's edition boxes. Nothing special comes with this, I don't think. I think there might be an art book. Oh, you got a soundtrack in there. I won't take it out because this box is already finicky to begin with. So here we go. So this is number 385 out of 3,000 copies. And it may not even be sold out to this day, and I got this a couple of years ago. It's not exactly something that's in demand, but I just fancied playing something that looks like it's a shoot 'em up. Perhaps a bullet hell? Yeah, okay, first word on the back here, bullet hell arcade shooting. So it's an arcade style bullet hell game. I don't think this was actually released in arcades. I'm just going to plonk this back in the box. And let's get going with the video and have a look at Shikhondo for the PlayStation 4. See if it's a bit of a hidden gem, or is it just forgotten because there are way better options out there. Let's have a look. So by the looks of it, what we've got here is a pretty typical bullet hell style of shoot 'em up. If you haven't played a bullet hell before, what you're seeing on screen should do all the explaining you need. You have two characters to pick from that have slightly different attack patterns, with each one having a slightly different alternate attack pattern as well, that you can use by holding down R2. Also, whilst holding the R2 button down, you'll notice this little ring around your character. This ring charges up by being close to enemy projectiles. Once it's full, you can activate what is essentially a special attack mode. All the bullets on the screen will disappear, similar to if you use a bomb, which is another fairly typical mechanic in these style of shoot 'em ups. And then you'll also have a more powerful attack for a brief period of time. So you'll want to spend as much time as you can close to, but obviously not touching, the enemy projectiles. This also actually makes it easier to charge up this special attack in the harder difficulties because there's more bullets on screen. There's not actually that much more to say in terms of the gameplay and how it works. You spend most of your time dodging bullets. As is fairly common in bullet hell style games, this little dot here is all you need to focus on in terms of your character. The rest of it's just artwork. The little dot is actually what gets hit by the bullets and will lose a life. For newcomers to bullet hells, they can seem very intimidating, but those people may not realise that you are an extremely small target. These games are difficult as hell, but they're not as bad as they look. Primary issue with gameplay here is it's a bit too typical. It does absolutely nothing special, and there's a ton of other shoot 'em up and bullet hell style shoot 'em ups that are far more interesting and also better to look at. The visuals here are not all that impressive. It's all a bit bland. Once you've seen one enemy, you've kind of seen them all. Nothing really changes. All the stages look virtually identical outside of some minor changes in the colours of the background. The artwork is nice, but that's it. It's just nice. It doesn't really stand out as anything special. The bosses are the most interesting part visually, but even then it feels like a lot more effort could have been put into the artwork. Speaking of the bosses, they're all these bizarre woman-animal hybrid creatures, which I'm guessing is something to do with the Korean mythology. All of the screaming and close-ups that happen, I think are supposed to come across as kind of creepy and weird, which it is to a certain level, but it sort of falls flat. Maybe 20 or 25 years ago this would have creeped me out, but by today's standards, even if you limit yourself to just looking at shoot 'em ups it's just been completely outclassed. Shikhondo does offer a nice little variety of gameplay options. There's a novice mode, so you get infinite continues, which you can practice playing on high difficulties without having to worry. There's also like a custom mode where you can change different gameplay elements up and play it how you want to. That's pretty cool, it's a nice little option to have. And of course you've got the multiple difficulty settings, but for shoot 'em up and especially bullet hell veterans, you'll likely head straight to the hardest difficulty, and even there, it's not actually that tough. Yeah, I wouldn't be able to beat it without using a continue, but considering my experience with bullet hells in particular, I actually had quite long streaks of not dying at all, where in a lot of other shoot 'em up games, even on lower difficulties, I can struggle. So despite how chaotic it looks, this one actually might be a pretty good starting point for beginners of bullet hells. If you want to try out this style of game without it completely kicking your ass from the get-go, this is a nice, safe introduction to all the basic mechanics. Doesn't get much more complicated, there's only a small handful of very short levels as well, but it plays and controls solid. You'll very quickly know whether or not you like this style of game after playing a few levels of this. Just before playing this, I did wonder whether this is a forgotten about game because there's better options, and the answer is yeah, that's basically the case. A decent little bullet hell game. It's not a bad game, it's not a bad example of that genre, but it just doesn't have much to offer beyond the absolute bare basics. It's a short game, it doesn't do anything new, it's not particularly high quality, not low quality either, but not high quality, not a case of oh it's only the basics, but it's done brilliantly, it's perfect. It's just a bullet hell shooter. That's it, that's the only way I can describe this. Beyond that, it does have a bit of appeal to bullet hell beginners. It's a little bit easier than I find a lot of other ones to be, and you don't have to worry about any complicated mechanics, so it has that going for it. Glad I've ticked it off the list, glad I've played it, but it just kind of makes me want to play a better shoot 'em up, so I'll probably do that next.